I found a secret basement in my childhood home and uncovered my family's darkest secret. I grew up in a small town where everybody seemed to know everybody. Our house sat at the edge of the neighborhood, a two-story relic with creaky wooden floors and a basement that always felt a little too cold, even in summer. My childhood wasn't bad. In fact, it was fairly ordinary. But there was one thing that never sat right with me. In our basement, there was a corner I was never allowed near. The basement was massive, lined with stone walls and filled with that damp smell of dust and old books. Shelves of canned goods stood against one wall, boxes of tools along another. But near the right side of the staircase, there was always a huge wooden wardrobe, awkwardly shoved into the corner. Behind it, I could just make out a patch of wall that looked off. Every time I tried to wander toward it, my dad's voice would boom from upstairs. "Stay away from there. It's dangerous. Dangerous." That was my father's favorite word. He'd use it for rusty nails, stray dogs, even Saturday morning cartoons. But when he said it about that part of the basement, his tone carried a different kind of weight. Whenever I asked my mom, she would wave me off. "Oh honey, it's just junk. Nothing you care about." But I wasn't stupid. Kids can always tell when adults are hiding something. And I knew, with absolute certainty, that behind that wardrobe was more than just junk. Years passed. I grew up, left for college, built a life of my own. I almost forgot about that basement corner until the day my father died. Standing in the living room, staring at his worn recliner and the faint smell of his tobacco still clinging to the curtains, I felt the kind of heaviness you can't describe. The house felt empty, but haunted not by ghosts, but by secrets. I'd come back to help my mother sort through his belongings. She looked exhausted, worn down by grief. I tried to take on as much of the work as I could, sorting through clothes, papers, boxes of junk. But eventually, I found myself descending into the basement. It was exactly as I remembered. Same damp chill, same rows of dusty jars, same wardrobe shoved stubbornly into the corner. Only this time, I wasn't a child anymore. I wasn't going to be scared off by shadows and my father's voice echoing in my memory. I gripped the wardrobe and dragged it aside. Behind it, there they were, doors. Old, wooden, reinforced with rusted strips of metal. A massive padlock hung across them. And the strangest thing, the wall around the frame had been painted over, as though someone had tried to blend the doors into the background. My heart pounded. I reached out and touched the lock. Cold, but not completely corroded, which meant someone had used it in recent years. I called for my mom. She came downstairs, and the second she saw what I'd done, her face drained of color. "Close that," she whispered sharply. "Mom, what's in there?" "Nothing, just memories best left alone. Put the wardrobe back." Her tone startled me. My mother was gentle, almost to a fault. Even when she was angry, she sounded more tired than threatening. But this was fear. "Why didn't you ever tell me about this?" I pressed. "Because it doesn't matter anymore," she snapped. Then, softer, "Please, some doors don't need to be opened." She climbed the stairs, leaving me alone with the door. And in that silence, I realized something. Whatever lay beyond it, I needed to know. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. By morning, my decision was made. When my mom went to visit my aunt, I headed down with a hammer, a crowbar, and a pair of bolt cutters from my dad's tool bench. The lock didn't last long. To heavy strikes, and it clattered to the ground. The doors groaned when I pushed them, releasing a gust of air colder than the rest of the basement. The darkness beyond felt deeper, almost alive. I turned on my phone's flashlight and stepped inside. It was a narrow hallway, lined with wooden boards. Dust-coated everything. But what unsettled me most were the footprints. They weren't old. Someone had been down here recently. The hallway opened into a small room. A table, a couple of chairs, and rows of boxes filled the space. I opened the nearest box. Inside were stacks of old newspapers, yellowed and brittle. Another box held children's toys, faded dolls, cracked cars, stuffed animals with one eye missing. Another still was full of photographs, hundreds of them. Most were black and white, some in faded color. Many were of my house, but the people in them? I didn't recognize a single face. Children, dozens of children, smiling, frowning, standing in front of our porch or in the yard. My stomach dropped as I sifted through them. Why were there so many pictures of kids I'd never met taken right here, in my home? Digging deeper, I found birth certificates, dozens of them, names, dates. In many of them, the section for parents was left blank. And then I found a photograph of a boy. He looked about 5 or 6 years old, with dark hair and a shy smile. On the back, someone had written, Artem, 1987. I froze, because the boy looked almost exactly like me when I was that age. The room suddenly felt smaller, the shadows thicker. My phone's light flickered once, twice, and in that fragile silence, I could have sworn I heard something. A sound so soft it might have been my imagination. A child's laughter. I nearly dropped the box of photographs when I heard it, that faint giggle. High-pitched, unmistakably childlike. My first thought was that it had to be in my head. Maybe the silence, the cold, and the dust were playing tricks on me. But no, the sound came again. A whisper of laughter that seemed to drift just beyond the reach of my flashlight. "Hello," I called, my voice cracking. The basement swallowed the word whole. No answer. I told myself I was being ridiculous. That old house's creak, air shifts, wood contracts. But that explanation didn't stop the chill crawling up my spine. I shoved the box closed and stood, brushing the dust off my hands. The room felt wrong now, like I had stepped into someone else's memory without permission. I took one last glance around and noticed something I hadn't before. A door at the far end of the room, narrower, almost hidden behind a shelf. Unlike the heavy reinforced door I'd broken through, this one was plain, unassuming, as if it wanted to be ignored. My flashlight wavered as I approached it. The knob was old brass, cool under my fingers. I hesitated, half expecting it to be locked. It wasn't. The hinges groaned as it opened, revealing a set of stairs descending deeper underground. I don't know what possessed me, but I started down. The air grew colder with each step, thick with the smell of damp earth. At the bottom, the stairs opened into a chamber far larger than the first room. My light revealed rows of old furniture, metal bed frames, tiny mattresses, wooden chairs lined against the walls, and in the center, a chalkboard, the kind you find in a classroom. Words were still faintly visible across it, written in white chalk, long faded. "Sit quietly." I couldn't breathe. The pieces started sliding together in my mind. The photos, the birth certificates, the toys. This wasn't just some forgotten storage room. At some point in the past, this place had been used for children. But why? And by who? I backed away, my flashlight trembling in my hand. That's when I noticed movement. One of the chairs rocked slightly. Just a nudge. Barely there, but enough to make my stomach twist into a knot. I bolted, raced back up the stairs, through the narrow hallway, and out into the familiar dampness of the basement. My lungs burned as I slammed the secret door shut. Though of course the lock was broken now. I dragged the wardrobe back into place and leaned against it, gasping. When my mother returned later that day, she found me sitting on the basement steps, pale and shaken. "What did you do?" she demanded the moment she saw the wardrobe move slightly out of place. I went inside, I admitted. "Mom, what is that? Why are there photos of children? Why was there a classroom down there?" Her face crumpled, and for a second I thought she might faint. She sank onto the bottom step, hands trembling in her lap. "I told him this would come out one day," she whispered. "I told him the past never stays buried." My blood went cold. "Him? You mean Dad?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, tears slipped down her cheeks. "You weren't supposed to know," she said finally. "You weren't supposed to find that place." That night, she wouldn't speak to me anymore. Every question I asked, she shut down. She locked herself in her room, leaving me alone with 1,000 racing thoughts. Sleep didn't come easy. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the faces of those children, heard that laugh again, wondered why one boy looked exactly like me. The next morning, I woke to find my mom gone. She'd left a note on the kitchen table. "Don't go back down there. Please, for your own good." Of course, that only made me want to go back more. I grabbed my flashlight, a stronger one this time, and returned to the basement. Moving the wardrobe again felt heavier, like the air itself resisted me. I pushed open the broken door and stepped back into the hidden corridor. Everything looked the same except the boxes. The one I'd left open with the photographs was closed. Perfectly closed, with the lid tucked in like it had never been touched. I hadn't done that. My chest tightened as I approached the second door, the one leading to the underground classroom. I gripped the knob and pulled. The stairs waited in silence, as if daring me to descend again. I swallowed hard and went down. The room hadn't changed. The beds, the chairs, the chalkboard. But this time, I noticed something on one of the walls. Carvings. Dozens of tiny scratches, etched into the wood. Some were just lines, tally marks, but others were words. I leaned closer, my breath fogging in the cold air. Most were single names. Mashe, Yuri, Dima, and then one caught my eye, carved deeper than the others. Letters jagged and desperate. "Help US." I stumbled back, heart hammering in my chest. That's when I heard it again. The laughter. Only this time, it wasn't faint. It was right behind me. I spun, flashlight beam cutting across the room. Empty beds, empty chairs. Nothing. But the sound still lingered, bouncing off the walls, overlapping, growing. Not just one laugh, many. Dozens of children's voices, giggling in the dark. I dropped the flashlight. The beam rolled across the floor, illuminating the chalkboard, and for a split second, I swore I saw fresh words written across it. Sit down. I didn't. I ran, up the stairs, through the hall, slamming the heavy door shut behind me. I didn't stop until I was back in the daylight of the kitchen, my chest heaving. Whatever that place was, it wasn't just history. It wasn't empty. And somehow, my parents had known all along. I spent the rest of that day pacing the house, staring at the floorboards as though they might open up and swallow me whole. The basement wasn't just storage. It was something else, something alive with secrets. And my parents had hidden it from me my entire life. That night, I confronted my mom again. She was sitting in the kitchen, chain-smoking in silence, her eyes red from crying. Why didn't you tell me? I demanded. Why were their names carved into the wall? Why were their beds down there? What the hell happened in our basement? She didn't look at me at first. She just dragged on her cigarette, exhaled, and finally said, Your father made me promise never to speak of it. Dad's gone, I snapped. You don't have to keep his secrets anymore. Her gaze finally met mine, hollow and heavy. You think they're his secrets? You think it started with him? My throat went dry. What do you mean? She stubbled out the cigarette, her hands trembling. This house, it was never ours to begin with. It belonged to people who did terrible things. I leaned forward, gripping the edge of the table. What things? She didn't answer directly. Instead, she got up, shuffled toward the pantry, and pulled down an old tin box. From it, she withdrew a stack of yellowing papers tied together with twine. These, she whispered, setting them on the table. I untied the stack. Inside were letters, newspaper clippings, even official documents stamped with seals I didn't recognize. The clippings spoke of children's homes, special education centers, and post-war rehabilitation, but the language was vague, clinical, deliberately careful. One headline froze my blood. Unlicensed orphanage shut down after allegations of abuse. I looked up sharply. This house was an orphanage. For a while, my mom admitted, but not the kind you're thinking. Not a real one. It was unofficial, off the record. They brought children here from other places, said they were taking care of them, but it was a lie. I thought of the chalkboard, the carved names, the laughter. What happened to them? I asked, though part of me didn't want to know. She shook her head slowly. No one really knows. Some say the children were adopted out quietly. Others disappeared. Disappeared? My voice cracked. Her silence was answer enough. I sat back dizzy. My childhood home, my safe place, was built on the bones of something monstrous. But why didn't you ever tell me? I pressed. Because your father believed it was over, she said softly. That the past couldn't touch us if we ignored it. But I never believed that. The house remembers. And now, so do you. That night, I couldn't sleep. My head spun with images of faceless children trapped in that underground classroom. I dreamed of voices whispering my name, small hands tugging at my sleeves. When I woke, the air in my room felt heavy. My phone was dead, though I'd charged it before bed. And faintly, from somewhere below, I thought I heard scratching, like fingernails dragging against wood. The next day, I made a decision. I couldn't leave it alone. I needed answers, real ones, not fragments of old newspapers or my mother's half-truths. So I went back down. This time, I brought more than just a flashlight. I carried a camera, fresh batteries, even chalk to mark my path. If there was more to find, I wasn't leaving without evidence. The hidden door groaned as I pushed it open again. The corridor seemed darker than before, as though the shadows had thickened in my absence. When I entered the classroom, the air felt charged. My flashlight beam quivered as I swept it across the beds, the chairs, the carvings. That's when I saw something new. On the chalkboard, beneath the faded command to sit quietly, there were fresh markings, not written in chalk, scratched into the surface itself. We remember. I staggered back, heart pounding. My hands shook so badly I nearly dropped the camera. This isn't possible, I muttered aloud, as if saying it might make it true. But then, a voice. Not laughter this time. A whisper, so close it could have been right beside my ear. Why did you come back? I spun, my flashlight cutting through empty air. Nothing. The whisper came again, but this time from the opposite corner. My pulse thundered in my ears as the beam of light caught something movement. A figure darted between the shadows, small, child-sized. I froze, every muscle screaming to run, but my legs refused to move. Another figure appeared, then another. Faint outlines in the darkness, too fast to focus on, but unmistakably shaped like children. Dozens of them, slipping between the beds, crouching in the corners, watching me. My breath hitched. You're not real, I whispered. You're not real. but the carvings on the wall said otherwise. The photographs said otherwise. And then, all at once, the children laughed. It was deafening this time, echoing off every wall, bouncing in my skull until I clamped my hands over my ears. When I dared to look at the chalkboard again, the words had changed. Stay with us. That broke me. I bolted, my camera swinging wildly against my chest. I didn't care about evidence anymore, I just needed to get out. I didn't stop running until I was outside, gasping in the daylight, my heart slamming against my ribs. From the yard, I looked back at the house. Every window stared back like a black eye, and for the first time, I felt like the house itself wanted me to stay. That night, my mother found me sitting on the porch steps, shivering despite the warm air. You went back, she said. Not a question, a statement. I nodded weakly. They're still down there, Mom. The children. I saw them. Her face crumpled, and she whispered something that chilled me more than anything. I'd seen underground. I know. My mom's words echoed in my skull. I know. For a long time, I just stared at her, waiting for her to explain. Finally, she sat beside me, her voice breaking as she whispered, Your father. He wasn't just hiding the truth. He was part of it. He helped them. He kept the children quiet. The world tilted beneath me. My father, a monster. He regretted it later, she said quickly, as though that made it better. That's why he built the wall. That's why he sealed it all away. But you can't bury the past forever. They don't forget. Her words hit me harder than the laughter, harder than the whispers, harder than seeing those ghostly figures in the basement. The house wasn't haunted by strangers. It was haunted by the children my own father betrayed. That night, I left. I didn't pack much. I didn't look back. The house still stands, but I'll never step inside it again. Sometimes, though late at night when the world is quiet, I hear faint laughter outside my window. And I know the children still remember me, too.